Welcome to Exiles, a Gospel of Mark podcast. We're coming to you from Grace Church in Erie, Pennsylvania, where we're taking what we learn about ancient truths in the person of Jesus into our everyday life. You can check out whoisgrace.com/Mark for the sermon and resources we're using for our conversation. Thanks for joining us today for season 5, our final season. In this section of Mark, the end is just the beginning. We're going to pick up where we left off in this greatest of stories, following Jesus through his final days in Jerusalem. Hello, guys.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello.
Good.
Good.
Great.
How are you?
I'm great.
We've been doing this for like a year and a half.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
almost
cry.
Almost 2 years. Yeah, we'll cry in the last
That's
episode.
I won't.
The whole
It'll just be, we'll take all the questions that we've received.
I won't.
I just don't have tear ducts, so.
Or emotions.
Or emotions.
Yeah, Steven doesn't have emotions.
Or no feelings.
Hey, so I want to start.
Wow,
We
okay.
got a comment from a listener who's in the Middle East.
Whoa.
Yeah. So the comment was about it was way back in November. We were talking about a disciple's job description, and his comment was basically like, at one point in the podcast we were talking about the viability of people actually being able to hear Jesus preach, like on the to huge crowds, like how, like when the feeding of the 5,000, 4,000, all those things. We must have been having a discussion about just, wow, cool, God must have amplified his voice and stuff like that, And so he sent a video, which obviously I can kind of play it, but show it to you, where he was like in the desert. We can maybe put it on for YouTube, but like he was on in the desert and showing, they're like on a 200-foot-ish
Like sand.
embankment slope. And he's like, we're not by the water, but he could clearly hear his kid just like speaking. You can just clearly hear. It's like a bowl.
And it's echoing.
Yeah, it's like echoing. And you can just hear, you don't have to yell. He was just explaining, like, they go like sand sled riding and through campfires and stuff. And that's where they meet people. But like, you can just hear people's conversation, like over on the other ridge.
Whoa.
Like you can just, it's just, so he was just wondering, maybe it was like that.
Where the sound travels.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of a cool
Well, when you
perspective.
think about it, it's wide open. There's nothing blocking the sound. There's nothing like, there's no buildings. There's like, how far could the sound travel?
And they knew that back then. I mean,
Sure.
so I was
They were used to it.
I was in Montreal last May, and a beautiful cathedral there. But the way they had designed it, even like hundreds of years ago, for the sound waves or whatever nerd stuff, like, but from this one point you could just speak conversationally and everybody would hear. And so that was in the 1800s. But so I guess there's, and even, have you been to Mars Hill? Like the Mars Hill, or somebody had, maybe Sarah had.
Sarah might have been, yeah.
But I think maybe same concept. Like they intentionally designed it or realized voices would carry. So
it was kind of
super fascinating.
And he's like in the Middle East, so it's like cool. He's kind of over in the space.
Right next door, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes me, this is an aside, but when it comes to like architectural design back then.
Oh, yeah.
Genius.
Do you ever walk in our church
it's just
and go,
amazing. I know. I know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Like they had these theaters,
Yeah.
no amplification, all natural, but they knew how to build it.
Yeah.
Oh,
and that was
they
kind
would
of
just
a
shout.
natural
And again,
theater.
it's probably from nature. I mean, probably just observing. Yeah.
That's
wild.
cool.
It's really cool.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
That's really nice.
We'll say thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
So related question for the day.
Okay.
What's the tallest mountain you think you've ever been on?
Oh.
And let me just read you my husband's answer while you're thinking.
I have never
was
have
like,
I been
Dave,
on
what?
a mountain before. Like,
Okay,
like
a
a
hill or
legit,
whatever?
like.
So Dave, he says that's a loaded question. I mean, we haven't been up that many mountains per se. The highest elevation you've been is that road that goes through Rocky Mountains National Park in Colorado that reaches 12,183 feet. But you're already starting at a high elevation there, I think your biggest elevation gain was Mount Washington in New Hampshire, which starts at 1527 and goes to 6288, which is a gain of 4723. Even that gondola in Banff at Sulphur Mountain is only 2300 gain from the base at 5194 to the peak.
So
I'm like, what?
You know the man you
Which
married.
one?
I mean,
Dave is just.
I still don't know which one.
That's a Dave answer for sure.
It's totally
100%.
I still don't know the answer because I have to do math.
Could you imagine being in Dave's brain for one day?
Yes,
He's so like.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
Detailed.
So, but I guess
It's
you're saying,
amazing.
like, philosophically, what's the tallest mountain
what's
you've
a
ever
view,
like?
or a view you remember from like up high somewhere?
Probably like a ski mountain at Seven Springs.
Yeah.
Like I think that's probably it for me.
I didn't climb it, and that's not the
okay.
question.
That's not the question.
When I was 18, I graduated high school. My dad and I went to Germany because I had, for some reason, studied German in high school.
Me too.
Me
Great.
too.
Wow.
Ich bin
Do you remember it?
16 Jahre alt.
What'd you just say?
Yeah.
I am 16 years old
Yeah.
because that's how old I was.
Is that all you
Wie
can
spät
remember?
ist das? What time is it?
Was ist that? Yeah.
Totally.
Good job.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
guys.
Do you remember it being hard?
Yes.
Yeah, it
I
was,
can't
should have
imagine.
picked
All
Spanish.
the Spanish people were like,
Why?
and I was like,
that was so dumb.
I don't even know what the verbs are.
Whoa.
In any case,
Anyway.
my dad and I, we went to Germany, went to Munich, we went to Eagle's Nest, which was Hitler's mountain lair or whatever, and you have to go this huge elevator, but
Ooh, scary.
it's way up high in the Bavarian Alps, and you walk out, and of course it was a cloudy day, but you could still see just like wild peaks and.
how much of
cool.
the structure is still there?
So, well, now it's like a resort type thing. So it's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's
What?
There's a restaurant, and I mean, it's fascinating. But it
Wow.
was it was a super cool
A
view
cool
in
view.
the Bavarian Alps.
That's
in
cool.
Germany, yeah.
That's a good one.
Wow.
That's a great.
Steven?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a weird question.
Sorry, well, I don't know. I was thinking about
Scottish Highlands.
We had a little. It wasn't even a mountain, but we had a little hill called Falkland Hill right next to where we lived.
is that where you're throwing all your poop all the time?
Yeah, that's right. That's, yeah.
Gardy Lou.
yeah, that was the sewage dump.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it was a very little hill. No, we would walk up it as a family.
Yeah, cool.
It was like a pastime my dad loved to do with the family. So, I mean, it was pretty big once you got up there. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Have
a
you been
hill,
up
so-
since being an adult?
Oh, that's a good question.
Isn't that
I
real?
don't think so.
It is
So next
real.
time you go visit your parents, you should walk
Yep.
up with
Yeah, take your
Marlo and
kids up.
Soren and see how big it really
It
is.
will be so different for you
That's
as an
interesting.
Yeah.
Do it. Report back.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, it might be
things
really,
seem
it might be really
so-
small.
It's true. Like memories of us as kids, like when you do the same thing as an
Oh,
adult,
yeah.
isn't it the perspective totally different?
Come back
But
and
the
be like,
innocence and the wonder of a child, like it's just
it's just a park walk. That's all it was.
This could ruin,
Guys, I thought it
like
was
a
a hill,
hill.
but
Yeah.
it was literally just a
could ruin
hill.
a core memory for him.
Yeah, I could.
yeah.
All right. Speaking of hills, we're talking about unexpected preparations, and Pastor Mike was the preacher this week.
Ding, 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 ding,
was
ding,
me.
ding.
Exciting. It's always good to have the expert on the panel, you know?
That's okay.
I mean, whatever. I'm being
Having
nice.
someone on the panel.
It's fine. No. Okay. So we're in Mark 14, 12 to 21, 26, 31. And your big idea, Jesus always prepares his people. As we think about that big idea, let's just take a lay of the land at the beginning, kind of where we are, what we're doing, the thoughts. And you can lead this out if you want, but if you guys have thoughts on the setting.
Just setting up the scene.
Yeah.
So this is, and again, if you listen yesterday, this is just kind of regurgitating that.
Yeah.
But the scene is setting up. They're getting ready to. This is Thursday of Holy Week, the Passover meal. The city is packed with Jews coming from all over the world to celebrate Passover, and it begins with Jesus sending 2 disciples in to go, just kind of get the accommodation for the night for this, and. I mean, he kind of goes through the meal and then some of the actions after. And again, this is Thursday night. Tomorrow is Good Friday.
Right.
When Jesus would be crucified. He'll be betrayed later that night. And then...
So we're right in that
Right in
beginning
that.
space.
Yep.
Right in the
I liked when you said the thing about the Dr. Pepper. I was like, wow, that's real. Like if
Yep.
yeah, hey, go get the thing with the Dr. Pepper and the turkey. And the Lord was like, oh yeah, that was like...
Trying to make it...
I had never looked at
Dr.
this
Pepper.
the whole situation from the lens that you brought to the table. I had never realized how chaotic it would have been.
Oh, just
And-
because the more people around.
Yeah, and the fact that the likelihood of just being able to have a room, especially of that size. And I actually just saw a video it was on TikTok of someone
Must have been
like
real.
there
Sorry, that came out. Keep going. Keep
It's a
going.
day. It's a day.
where he like someone's like on a tour
Okay.
Oh,
and like goes
Jerusalem.
and yes, and like they go to the room that they believe that happened. I was like, oh, it's actually kind of nice. Like this is a nice room.
Nice
Would
room.
the analogy have
Yeah.
landed as well if I had
Nice little
chosen
space.
something different than Dr. Pepper?
no.
Okay. If I said like Pepsi or Coke.
No, gross.
Right. Dr. Pepper is kind of what made it. Great.
Diet
Okay.
Coke
Good
would
to
have been
know.
nice.
Good to know.
But
There's
I-
something about I'm a big word person. There's something about like the
Dr.
way that
Pepper.
word sounds. It's cool. Yeah.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. That versus Coke
True.
or
That was
Pepsi.
a Holy Spirit-led decision.
Wow.
Just for Danielle, apparently.
I guess.
Apparently.
I don't know.
But I
I'll remember
appreciated
it.
you doing that because I don't know how and maybe I'm just one of the few, but I never thought of it in that way. I just figured this was just something that
No, it's one
you
of
just
the.
find a space and that's how it works.
I mean, it's one of the million passages in the Bible that you can read through real quick and you just and then you're done and you don't. And that's not necessarily. We're not all equipped and we don't have enough time to get into every single one. But that's a good.
But that little
preacher
piece
and
of
pastor should be able to
information
unpack.
brings a different appreciation to. He will always take care of it. It's if you let him just do it, it will. He said he did it and he did it, and that at all. I think it just.
Yeah, in the midst of a chaotic situation.
Yeah,
because I think I might have my numbers wrong, but I think almost about 2 million people would descend upon Jerusalem during that time.
Yeah, it was
so it was like packed.
It was like 5-10x the population.
Yeah,
and be able to get that room.
Yep. Almost like it was God. Also, random. I saw. It's just what we need. Another random thought.
Yeah.
I just saw a trailer for The Chosen, which you will appreciate. They're calling the last season, or this next season, The Last Supper, and I think it's around all of this right here that you preached on. Yeah,
I've been
I don't even
really
think it gets.
wondering how
I
they're
don't know
gonna
if
do
it
all
necessarily
this.
even gets to the crucifixion and stuff. We'll see.
We'll see how accurate it
Anyway,
was.
yeah, and we will. Yeah,
How accurate they were.
yeah, right. They were. Yeah, more likely that. Okay, so. In what we're kind of getting into here, but in what area of your life are you tempted to forget that God knows what will happen next? Is there an area where it's like he's in control, he knows what's going to happen, but you just like can't rest in that?
So I know that I'm being a dead horse in regards to like my fitness journey, but this is like huge. And I think we're obviously in a time of the year where a lot of people are, New Year's resolutions are going to get in shape and it's like really hard and things like that. But from another point of view of it is there's an appreciation for the fact that your body was created by Christ. He had a body like we did. Your body, when you go through big changes or you do a lifestyle change or a fitness journey, etc., you go through you really connect with the creation of your body, like body, soul, and mind all come together. When you set a deadline or a goal, or there's expectations when you go into, because you're going to ultimately want certain parts of your body to change, and every body is different. And so you're literally trusting the process of creation that he created for it to change or develop into what your body is actually supposed to do based on who you are. So in my situation, because there's a competition involved and there's a show involved, I have a deadline. Okay. So I have to be in a certain place to compete well, or at least have the confidence to do the show to a certain degree for me, for my expectations. What I've learned is there is a science and there's a process that creation does in your body, and you are literally at its mercy. Because your body is going to change the way your body is going to change based on age, genetics, whatever.
Because
but
of what it's built. Yeah,
you are learning to trust that, okay, I've been brought to do this thing. I'm taking charge of myself fitness-wise, mentally, etc. And you find that there is a lot more to it on a Jesus side of things than you just working out and eating right, etc.
That's cool.
There's a realization that this is creation. You are a part of creation. He created it. So there's very much a part of it where you need to connect with him to understand the process. So I have become very dependent on things aren't changing in certain spots I need to change, or I feel like I want to change. Because in my space, I'm one way, the rest of the world sees it as another. And I'm having to rely on him to make me understand how this all works.
Interesting.
That is interesting. Wow.
Very.
Yeah, you just went deep.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's, I think there's a lack of, it's all interconnected.
Yes.
And different strains of Christian heretical thought have been like, forget about the body, it's all about the soul. Forget about the soul, it's all about the body,
Yeah.
Yep.
But like, God made our holistic self, and he made it to honor, and he made it intentionally and intimately and to reflect his image. And so it is all connected. It's not a weird thing to be like, Jesus is involved in this pursuit. But even while you're following his template, there's still like, you're still not in control of all you can control the variables you can control, but there's still things you can't control.
You just have to trust that he created a body that is going to do it. And there's something when you're locked in, and you're in, there's, when you do any kind of fitness journey or any kind of journey with creation or anything, get ready, because you're opening up a whole nother side of your relationship with him that's wild.
What's the one food you are craving so bad
Chocolate
right
cake.
now?
Okay, that was quick.
A warm,
Yeah, it's very quick.
Do you have milk in your chocolate cake?
Don't make her do this.
A warm piece
my gosh.
that's been my thing for the last couple weeks.
Is that what you're eating when it's over? Is that the first thing?
Mexican food's my first thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could have
fair.
guessed that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
get a cheat day at
But-
the end, right?
She actually tried to let me have one last week, and I couldn't do it.
Wow.
Just
Because your
I
body's
just-
so dialed in.
yeah.
I'm so dialed in, and also too, I'm so afraid of feeling sick. And I was like, I'm not in a space to deal with that. I'm in a space to just keep going. So she's eventually gonna make me shock myself, though. It's
Yeah.
just part of it. But we're not there yet. But chocolate cake, warm,
You keep saying warm.
warm, soft.
If you're not watching us right now, her misty eyes are looking into the
Yeah,
distance.
you can mail it to her at the office.
And then the donuts came today, and I was like, okay, like that's starting to feel.
Yeah.
That's
but
hard.
It's fine.
Wow.
part of it.
So I have a
Yeah.
buddy who's actually best man in my wedding. So a really good buddy. And he's a trauma-informed coach, particularly in the Christian space,
Yeah,
and
cool.
particularly with sex addiction and porn addiction.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
So he deals actually with a lot of pastors in this space and stuff like that. But he talks specifically about that as well. So it's part of his story, and this is how we sort of landed in this space. But as he uncovered some of the trauma in his life that he didn't actually realize existed, he realized that there's more to the holistic
yes.
reality of the spiritual journey, if you will, of the sanctification process than he would have ever given it credit to. Now, he grew up probably in the young, restless, and reformed era as well, like I did. And so there's not necessarily a focus on that per se. But when his life unraveled, he had to do some really, 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 really deep work and realized that his body was
Yes.
literally responding in certain ways
Sure.
to some of the trauma that he experienced. So now he offers it.
Yeah.
And I think he not just pastors, but I think he's counseled about 50 men in the last year.
Wow. Whoa.
That are like him, none the wiser at that stage in their journey. Like, what the heck is going on
Yep.
with me right now? I can't put any language to it. And he's starting to help them put some language to like this holistic, and he's just
That's
like,
cool.
he's just a
wild.
phenomenal.
Well, it's one of those
Deep
things
well.
where, physical, sexual, mental, psychological trauma, and you can try to control the way you react to it. And you can try to control all the things until you literally can't
Yes.
anymore, because
Right.
that's your body's responding.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
You'll get put in a space eventually where you're in a corner
Yeah.
and you're going to have to, something's going to have to shift, or you break down. It's
And I say all that knowing that happens to me too periodically. So I'm like, "Whirr," and I'm, "Ah."
Yeah. Just like that.
If no one's watching,
That's
he
the
just
only
stuck
way
his tongue
that
out.
it comes out
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's that. Yeah.
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 I have this thing where and I don't want to say never because that'd be too strong, but like I don't have a problem believing that God will provide personally. Like I don't know, I've just seen too much where I just believe I have a little bit of faith in that area where he just kind of personally goes before me
yeah.
in all things. But for some reason, and this is going to sound so backwards, so I'm just going to say it because I think it might be helpful, at work and at church work specifically, that's where I have a problem with like him being in control. And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to be like rude. There are some things that happen and I'm like, really? That's okay. That's
Yeah.
the decision. That's what's happening. That's
Yeah.
the next thing. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I feel personally
So here's
partially
how-
responsible or what, but there's a definite difference between the way I view God's sovereignty at work and the way
Yeah.
I view it at home.
So here's how I've reasoned it. I'm not saying this is
Yeah,
correct.
that's
This
right.
is not prescriptive in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But I wrestle. I think we're similar in a lot of respects.
Yeah, we are,
So
yeah.
I wrestle and have wrestled with that before too. And I've come to at least apply this type of logic to it. Again, whether it's right or
Yeah.
not is another conversation. But sometimes I felt that God has given me the responsibility in that space to be either the voice in solving that. And so there's sometimes, or a lot of times in the past, this unnecessarily, like I own it, this ownership.
Yeah.
It becomes unnecessary where I own too much of it.
You bear more of the
much of the
burden
weight,
than
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
because
good.
I'm like, God's given it to me, so I need to solve it.
Yeah.
Rather than God giving it to me giving it back to
That's
him,
good.
or figuring out at least what partnership looks like with God in that.
That's fair.
Because I think that's probably more accurate than going, because I think we can go, oh, God's given it to me, I just need to give it back to him.
Right.
And
Which
God's
is
like, well, no, I've called you into that space
Right.
because you have certain makeup DNA gifts, abilities,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah.
that I actually want you to use and speak into.
Yeah, it's good.
But not in isolation, not by yourself.
Yeah.
But I think that's at least
That's
the
fair.
understanding that I've come to at times. Like, oh, I'm owning it because he's given it to me.
That's fair.
But
Yeah.
I'm owning too much of it.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I resonate with that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun being a pastor because like I'm a pretty good pastor and I can sit with you and I can pastor the crap out of you, and then I go home and I'm like,
Pastor the crap out of you.
blah, like
The opposite. Like,
I can do for
Totally
others.
unravel, yeah.
And then I come
Oh,
home and
for
I'm like,
sure.
you should like love your wife and care for her. And then I
Sure.
come home and I'm like, I was a total like.
yeah.
So it's, and I think, and for me, so I'm an Enneagram 8, which, and I think I've said it before, the only way I remember what they are is by their negative connotation.
Right.
So I'm a control freak.
Right.
And there's other positive aspects. in
There are
I'm
positive
sure, but
aspects.
when I'm sitting with somebody and they're like, what do I do with my life? What's my next, like those kind of big, especially kind of career things. I love to sit with them and help them. And I ask good probing questions and help them to see. And then I come home and then I feel like I've been in seasons before where I'm like, well, I got to figure out what I'm doing next. And and I'm looking 18 steps ahead. And there's no surrender of what comes next to God. It's like I can kind of force the function a little bit. And then thank God I married a woman who's like, shut up, sit down, be still, like
Little fairy
let's enjoy where we're
princess.
at. And
Yeah.
She's so sweet.
yeah, so it's a weird dichotomy
Yeah.
to live in. I think I'm better at it than I was,
Yeah.
maybe.
Probably. I mean, I think we
More
all
aware of yourself.
I'm more, well, yeah, so that's...
Listen, every decade of your life, you learn that you didn't know anything, and then you learn the new thing that you need to learn.
It
Danielle,
is just a journey
yes.
of awareness. That's
it's
really all
totally.
it is. Yeah.
So I don't have to do anything about it?
It's a journey of self-awareness
Yes.
Awareness
and knowing
pushes you
more
to
about
action.
God, for sure.
And as you grow,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
that is real. The older you get.
Okay, so this kind of ties into your big idea, and I don't want to brush past that. Jesus always prepares his people, and God promises to prepare us for suffering and often prepares us through our suffering. And so I thought we could talk about if any of us want to share about like a difficult season where maybe, or if we have a story of someone else, like where God sovereignly prepared you ahead of time. Yeah. And I think, I don't want to brush past, like, Jesus always prepares his people. A lot of times, and I can do this too, but a lot of times I observe people like in this tornado when they're going through something. And it is hard. It is hard when you're going through it. Very difficult to sometimes to like grasp. That's our humanity
100%.
just beating up against, what God has for us. But like, he has prepared you for it. Like you don't go, he's not just like, oh my gosh,
That came out of nowhere.
they have cancer. What? Like he's like, oh
Yeah.
no. Okay. And once you get, and again, unless you have some divine attunement or you're like really good, which there are people who are really great at this, it takes some hindsight. But I think like most times you can see like, oh, that's why that happened 10 years ago
Yep.
and 7 years ago
Yes.
and whatever, and equip me for this, that, or the other thing. And it's not an easy answer. I'm just saying like, if we can just take, and I'm saying it to myself because something will happen to me in 2 years and I'll be like, rah!
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, that was rambly, but if we can just learn to like take a minute or a lot of minutes when you're going through
Pause.
something and just, God
A
is still
wider
here.
perspective.
Yes.
Just even God is still here is hard sometimes, but
Yeah.
It's what it all comes down to over and over again. And we've said this 1,000 times. We don't like being uncomfortable. So we're constantly in this space where we know that he's in control. We remind ourselves, we're constantly talking to ourselves, we're praying about it, but we're tired of staying in a space where we're feeling uncomfortable. And frustrated, and it just becomes, that's hard.
So I think
Even though time and time again, like you just said, you could go back and watch things from like 10 years ago in your life and play your life back, and you're like lined up, and you know it and you feel it and you try to remember those moments and you journal about them or whatever, and then a new one comes up and you're like, it's different, but it's still really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I look at this as like a two-sided coin. All coins are two-sided. I realize that, but just roll with me for a second, okay?
Maybe not Scott.
Did you just call me Scott?
He
No, I
said
said
maybe not in Scotland.
Oh, maybe not in
One-sided
Scotland.
coins.
I thought you called me Scott because Scott's like, I call him Mystic Scott because he
Mystic,
walks
yeah.
around.
Oh, well,
with-
I mean, that could,
with
let's see where this
wizard
goes.
stick, you know.
Oh, wizard
Yeah.
stick.
Anyway, well, he doesn't actually walk around with a wizard stick. Anyway, let me get to my point.
No one's stopping you.
So back to when I became a lead pastor at 22, and I think I've shared that before.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how I understand it at this season of life now that I'm 37, 38 in a few months, right? That's how it works. Anyway, back to my point again.
So we'll help you through whatever you
Yeah,
need.
yeah, yeah.
Help me through this,
Yeah.
guys.
Good.
You're alive.
I was totally not prepared for that moment. Like, I became the lead pastor.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was doing. Had countless amounts of sitting in the hospital parking lot, ready to go in to speak to someone. I have no idea what I'm going to say. I've got no life experience to actually share. This person's gone through X, Y, and Z, and what in the world am I doing in this parking lot about to step into this situation? But here's what I've come to identify is that, yes, I was totally unprepared for that. So there's this God prepares you in the moment reality.
Sure.
But I think what's more important, and I think it's important for people to identify in themselves to do this work, is that God had prepared me ahead of time too, right? So God had prepared me as a natural leader.
Yeah.
I'm unafraid of awkward situations, and I'm prepared to do hard things. And that's just who I am. That's in my makeup and my DNA. I'm not afraid to say hard things either. So for an example, my first Sunday in charge, we had an elderly man who'd been in the church for many years get up and preach that there was no such thing as hell, and a loving God would never send anybody to
Oh,
hell.
wow. What a day.
So my
day.
first Sunday in charge, I had to literally stand up in front of everybody and tell
Right
him afterwards that he was wrong. Because that
Amazing.
scripture would call me to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he got up there and kind of opened him.
And so anyway, that's just an example. Don't want to
Yeah,
get
it's
lost
good.
in the example, but
Yeah.
there is this reality that on one side you're totally unprepared for it,
Right.
but on the flip side of the same coin, God has built in you. He has
Right.
prepared you in certain ways with certain characteristics, principles, values,
Yes.
traits, whatever. And it could be all of those. It could be just a selection of those. And I think it's important for people to identify those things.
That's good.
Because when you don't do that, then you'll enter into an unprepared, which is real,
Yeah.
an unprepared situation season in that whirlwind, rather than going, okay,
Yes.
here's who I am.
That's good.
Here's who God has made me. I don't have a clue in how I'm going to actually handle this situation, but I know this is the makeup and DNA inside of
yeah,
me.
that's good.
And so I know that I can step into this. if
That's
that
great.
makes sense.
That's really
very
having
good.
self-awareness, knowing who you are in Christ, and how He has uniquely crafted you, even when you are quote unquote unprepared. You know who you are. You
Yep.
know how He's molded you, and you can trust that He has prepared you, even in your unpreparedness. That's really good.
Yeah, and otherwise, I think most people just feel like they're being flung around like a rag doll, and that's not
That's not how this
God's.
works.
People
not his character at all.
walk into it in complete chaos, feeling totally overwhelmed
Yeah.
with very little confidence, which is not what you want. And so they spend the rest of their time hoping, when I feel prepared,
100%.
then I'm actually going to be successful
I'll
in
do-
this.
yep.
And you're missing the point altogether. Rather than going, this is how God has prepared me for it. I have no actually idea how
That's good.
it's all going to play out.
But I'm gonna take
I
the
know
step
what
off
he
the
trusts
cliff.
inside
Yep.
me. Yeah. So anyway, I got to my point. The end.
No, that was a word
really
for
good.
somebody. That was good.
As you had asked about just like seasons in
Yeah.
your life. I think of my third deployment was to Afghanistan as an advisor to the Afghan army, and so I was at lunch yesterday, and they were talking about How are you
You
prepared
just randomly
for this?
unroll. You just like let these things out that you used to do, and I'm like, okay.
Well, yeah, this literally came up in lunch yesterday. And
That's
how did you get prepared for the role that you're in? And that was honestly our third deployment and our third year of marriage. So that was, do not recommend. But went to that, felt very unprepared. However, was able to excel in it. Did a good enough job, I guess. But then now stepping into this role a little over 3 years ago, what I was able to glean from that experience of being able to, there's always another side to the story. There's another perspective to understand. There's a reason someone did it that way. Get to know, ask good questions, understand first before. Those are all skills that I have used in spades in my current pastoral role that I picked up in that gauntlet.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm glad I did. It was not an easy or necessarily fun experience, but I'm very thankful for having passed through that season because of what it's done. And I can even look back and see how God had prepared and crafted me for that season. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to sit back and look in hindsight.
Yes.
Actually, I need to do that personally often. And
It's a good practice. Yep.
Okay, you've come through. You've continued to come through.
Yes.
You will come through. Yeah.
That's good.
Because I think he definitely does take you through. Like, I feel like all of 2024 was me constantly being pushed out of my comfort zone. Constantly. Over and over again. But every time I made it through one of those situations, I was like, shoot, I did it. We did it. Like, there's a whole level of empowerment that comes with that. But you're right. Then those experiences lead you into another situation, but you feel more empowered in that situation because you went through the last uncomfortable one.
Mm-hmm. Or I'll feel the same level of unpreparedness as I felt earlier. However,
yes,
I'm more equipped. I think it's because as you become more equipped and prepared, God will draw you into more consequential situations. So the temperature gets turned up, but you're more prepared.
Yes.
So I might feel the same level of unprepared as 5 years ago, but actually the gravity of the situation God's calling me into
your
now.
faith is up a little higher.
Correct. And my faith can now match what he's calling me into. Yeah, it's like God knows what he's doing or something. It's wild.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So let's talk a little bit just more about the setting, like what God was doing in this time through Jesus. So, you can speak to it, but really your main 2 points, just that he demonstrated that he was in total control of the situation and knew exactly what would happen next. And he said he would go before them. Those are your 2 big kind of call outs, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's, and again, it's that's the luxury of being able to preach is, I didn't know when we preach, we are revealing to you what we're learning. That's what a good preacher does. And so being able to dive in on a passage you'd normally just kind of fly by until you get to the good stuff when the betrayal happens. But it was cool to just see the intentional preparation that Jesus was doing for his disciples because, just to imagine. And I did some little Scott mysticism there, but and I think I preached on a little bit, imagine, yes, for the disciples to, in retrospect, go, oh, holy crap, look what Jesus did. Remember that? But even for Jesus just walking through this, and he knew what he was doing, but just to know what was coming and to know why he was doing, he's...
And if that doesn't show you how loving he is, I don't know what does. Because he knew that they were all going to betray him. And he continued to just do these, I don't know. He's so cool.
He is cool.
Like that.
Yeah, so it was cool to see all we have a very intentional God who knows exactly what he's doing, and to see Jesus preparing. And then on the other side of it, it was cool to read in Acts, Peter, the one who had been sent in, the one who had front row seat to all of this, Peter, the one who screwed up, was also the one that was being prepared through all that to then stand up and be like, all right, boys, let's get moving. Let's start this thing. Pick Matthias, and then...
Yeah, that restoration point even before that. Just beautiful.
Because he could have crippled under all that regret.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure.
He could have crippled and been like, I'm not good enough. He's never going to forgive me. So it just goes to show that.
And that's the one. That was the rock upon which he built the church. That's just, it's cool.
It's really cool.
The contrarian in me wondered, did he really have to go that hard against, hey, whoever betrays me, you may as well be dead? The human contrarian in me is just kind of like,
you'd be so harsh.
All right. okay. Yeah. And then he died.
Yeah, I think I always say he's the king of awkward conversations.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's a good point.
Can you imagine?
That's just where my brain went. I was like, man, that was okay. Here's what's happening. Here's what's coming. You should be dead. Here's what's coming. Here's what's coming. Like, okay.
And that is one thing I like about The Chosen is whoever the actor
Yeah,
is,
he's
the way
good.
he delivers all of those awkward conversations, but he does it with such like I can't imagine Jesus ever felt awkward delivering these awkward things.
Yeah.
Just
Probably not.
to witness what those scenes would have been like.
People are like,
On to the next.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Anyway,
okay.
sorry, I didn't mean to derail us.
No, I love it.
Yeah. Okay. What else? Are we done? This is like my worst thing. Sorry for
day.
everyone.
It's a day.
I did
It was a shorter sermon.
Well, I did a
Baptism,
podcast
so-
before this,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
It was shorter for baptism, so
yeah,
You did do a podcast before this.
I did.
too,
So
yeah.
I apologize. I'm not on my game. Okay. Any other? So we kind of. I think we have some really good kind of exile-ish next steps for people. Obviously, in your sermon, next step is that discipleship question. What's my next small step of obedience? But I think even just it might be cool for everyone to just do a little like life retrospective. Like, what have I been through? Who
How does
am
all add
I?
up?
Agreed.
What are these questions like? Not even like, and you guys are saying this, but like not even just who am I, but who am I in Christ? Who has God made me to be? What are those threads that have kind of built up and up and up over time?
how's he crafted and formed me
Yeah.
through good and bad experiences?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And-
would say three
yeah.
questions are really helpful.
Great.
The who am I? So do some of that work. How has God made me? Maybe not the who am I, but how has
No,
God
fair,
made
yeah.
me? What has God taken me through? And what have I learned along the way?
That's good.
Like, I think if we could sit down this week and do that, 10 minutes in the morning, each morning, you're going to have a little notepad
Yeah.
of truths about yourself and about who you are becoming
Yeah.
and who you've become along the way too. So I think that
That's great.
if those are the three that you could go through, I think that would be
And
really
then
helpful.
and keep it.
Yeah.
Like, keep
Yeah,
that
keep
for
it. Yeah.
I have a drawer and I have an email inbox that's just a good vibe. I just call it my good vibes drawer. My good
Cute.
vibe. But anytime I get like an encouraging
That's adorable.
thank you for saying this or stepping or whatever, I like put it aside. And there are days like I need some good vibes, and so but
Pull 'em up.
to remember
That's
to
really-
remind that like
It's like the '80s slow jam, and he's just like reading.
do you do one of these as you open it up?
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
That's good though.
But it's
That's-
yeah, great. God did use me in that situation, and I did. Okay, I can. If he showed up then, he's going to show up now.
Yes.
I can still be a useful tool, even in the midst of. So keep doing that, and then
Yes.
keeping it to remember. I mean, that's what the Israelites did, right?
Right.
Altars
The
to
little
remind
altars.
themselves and
Little
Find
good
yourself
vibe drawers.
Yeah, go make
Get a
yourself a
vibe
good
drawer.
vibe drawer.
Yeah, it's a good. Yes, and also, you obviously this can be a thing that's just between you and God. But like, if you want someone to help you like reflect on, if you have like a super trusted friend or mentor or whatever, you could always ask them too. Like, what do you see in me? What have you seen over the past
Yep.
5 years? Whatever. But yeah, it's great. Okay, guys, thank you for going to the
you.
mountaintop
Oh.
and then to dinner.
This is the highest
or
mountain.
the
We're going to dinner?
little hill.
Well, the dinner.
Oh.
Sorry, supper. I should have said supper.
Did you order
Okay,
We
guys,
should
believe it or
eat
not.
next week while we're talking about while Derek's doing the Last Supper, we should have a snack.
Oh,
Oh.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there at the
We'll
end.
put
so you
Sarah
can-
in charge of it,
Warm
so it's her
chocolate.
warm
I'm just
chocolate.
my own snack. I'm just
Okay.
my own
chocolate cake.
Guys, I don't know if you've made it this far. Gold star. Thank you for listening. If you liked today's episode, give it 5 stars and subscribe. If you didn't, just move on. You can go to whoisgrace.com/Mark for those resources. So thank you for joining us. See you next week.
Bye.